Michigan isn't just one of the most closely contested races in the race for president, I should say states in the race for president. It's also home to one of the most closely watched Senate races this year as Republicans seek to regain control of the upper chamber. Tonight, Democratic Congresswoman Elissa Slotkin and former Republican Congressman Mike Rogers will square off for their second debate. It's one of three Senate races that the Cook Political Report races as a toss-up. A Quinnipiac University poll conducted earlier this month shows the two tied. And with Michigan home to the largest Arab American population in the country, as well as a large Jewish American population, the escalating tensions in the Middle East are a big part of this race. NBC's Julie Tsirkin is part of our fantastic team covering Congress. She spoke to Elissa Slotkin and Mike Rogers both, and she joins me now from Detroit. Julie, how much is the presidential race impacting what you're seeing in the Senate race?
Well, a lot, Ryan, because unlike other swing states like Arizona, for example, that we just were in last week covering the Senate race there, or even Pennsylvania, you're really not seeing either candidate here running away with the race or performing differently than the top of their ticket. When you look at what's going on the ground here, it kind of mirrors what we're seeing nationally in terms of the polls. Even our latest NBC News poll that found Trump and Harris essentially in a dead heat. That's what's going on here in Michigan, and it is exactly what is happening on the Senate level as well between Rogers and Slotkin. So when you're also looking at the issues, you're talking to voters here. A lot of the things that people care about nationally and are impacting the presidential race, people also care about here on the ground. I'm talking about the economy. I'm talking about immigration, the border, even abortion, even though this state was able to codify that procedure into law 2 years ago. All of those things are critical for voters, and both candidates are vying essentially for the same group here.
So are these candidates, are they embracing or are they trying to run away from the top of the ticket?
Well, they're both, in our interviews at least, sticking close with the tops of their tickets. Remember, for Mike Rogers, for example, Trump is really helping him get those MAGA voters, that MAGA base, and eat into those Republicans that Rogers historically maybe didn't align with as closely. He didn't endorse former President Trump for a long time. Trump now endorsed him, and he endorsed him back. But when you look at Slotkin, for example, she described Harris entering the fold as a sea change. Take a listen to more of what she and Rogers told me.
Listen, I'm not running Donald Trump's campaign. I'm running Mike Rogers' campaign for the United States Senate.
Yesterday in Detroit, the former president criticized the city and called it, quote, a developing area, hell of a lot more than most places in China. Democrats from Harris to Slotkin to other officials in this state are jumping on that. Do you agree with what he said?
Listen, I didn't hear what he said.
How has it been for you to have Kamala Harris at the top of the ticket versus President Biden?
Yeah, I mean, look, it was a sea change when she fleeted up to the top of the ticket. But I think now that we're in the fall, it's the same as it always is in a swing state, and particularly in Michigan. It's about those independent voters, those swing voters, those voters who make their decisions very late. We're competing for a very small group of people who decide Michigan elections, and they are still making up their minds.
You heard Mike Rogers there at the top of that soundbite being very careful not to be critical of former President Trump while saying that he is running his own race. He also told me he believes he can get those split ticket voters. He said you will see Harris-Rogers support because he's been zeroing in on those key voting groups that we keep talking about: black voters, auto workers, a big blue collar population here in this state, a working state. And when it comes to Slotkin, of course, she said that they're after those moderate and independent voters. This race was actually once leaning Democrat. They're vying for the open Senate seat of Debbie Stabenow that held this seat for nearly 25 years. So it's really interesting to see the dynamic shift in this race as now Slotkin and Rogers, as you see on your screen there, are neck and neck, tied.
And Julie, we definitely need to talk about how the conflict in the Middle East is particularly prominent in Michigan. It is home to the largest percentage of Arab Americans. It also has a significant Jewish population. How are the candidates navigating this issue?
And also, Ryan, the largest percentage of Lebanese Americans. Of course, that's notable when you see how this conflict in the Middle East has been changing and expanding in the last couple of weeks. This is something that's certainly front of mind, not only for Slotkin, but for Rogers. I pressed both of them on this issue. Slotkin has really been trying to sort of balance how she's handling the crisis here in terms of her private conversations with the communities, saying she's not giving public advice to the administration for how they should handle it. There's a large uncommitted vote that we saw here. So again, Rogers saying that he believes he can edge into that. Some of the victorious groups that Democrats have historically been victorious with, and we'll just see what happens.
All right, Julie Tsirkin, excellent reporting as always. Thank you, Jules.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.